So prior to that, OMMA had issued what's called a certificate of compliance. And it was this document that OMMA had put out that had a litany of sign-offs that you would need to get in relation to zoning. And if I'm in a position as a business owner where I've needed this to be compliant for all this time, and we're talking about zoning, we're talking about fire code, we're signing off on electrical code, and there's three options that say, meets code, doesn't meet code, or there's this third category, there are no codes. I would say that it establishes a really solid foundation that is such a thing in rural Oklahoma, that there are no codes. I've done a lot of research on this. We talked about this before getting on the podcast. So just out of curiosity, I looked into different agencies. So the ABLE Commission requires a certificate of compliance that you would fill out in a very similar fashion to how OMMA does. And then also the Department of Health. So for restaurants and things like that, they have a certificate of compliance, and they have their own internal plan review that doesn't touch IFC and IBC codes. It wasn't that OMMA just created this out of thin air. These are, I would call it functional policy. So we're recognizing limitations in our own state and in our own rural areas to enforce code properly. So we've just established these measurements here to go ahead and be conducive to economic development. And then what happened in January 2023 is you have that completely ripped out from under everyone. And on top of it, you're being told, well, this has always been the rules. Well, yeah, that rule may have sat on a shelf since 2009, but literally nobody enforced it. And I can tell you from talking with everybody from counties from the bottom up that nobody knew that this code existed. There was no collaborative effort from the state fire marshal's office to speak with localities about there being minimum codes and things like that, because up until, the end of 2023, you had counties that put there are no codes outside of corporate limits of XYZ cities. So it's a big mess.